Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy Monday. I hope you are all doing well. We are continuing on from the last video. The last video we had a play with Let's Resin's UV resin kit in all of the colours that are yummy and just scrumptious. We're going to actually be adding it in with the Let's Resin Polyurethane resin. I really wanted to see how they would both work together, and I'm pretty confident they'll stick at this point, so I figured we would just have fun. I'm going to be using some temporary tattoos, some foils. I was toying with the idea of putting in some of these stunning glitters by Yvonne in the Resin Suppliers Den over on Facebook, but I think I'm going to leave those to have their own video. So they are going to be coming up in the next couple of videos where we're going to play with some of the polyurethane and glitters. It's pretty. Okay. The mold I'm using here is the pendant mold by Molds and Shapes. We do have a 5% discount code for you in the description box for Molds and Shapes. This is my go-to chunky pendant mold. I absolutely love it. We're going to be doing, I guess, like 2/3 polyurethane, 1/3 UV. So I've just poured in 3 different colors of the UV resin just to see. I'm looking for the color that's going to go with all 3. So when it comes to mixing up the polyurethane, I just have to worry about one color because we all know we don't have time. We don't have time for that. So a quick blast of a little flame here from my long neck lighter. Try not to hit your silicone for too long, it will melt your silicone, but we're all good if you do it fast. As for the polyurethane, I'm mixing up minimal amount. I think I've got around about 14 or 13 grams of part A, part B mixed together because we don't want much. Into this, we are adding in some of that magenta. I feel like the colors I've chosen, it's gonna go with all 3. That was my logic. That was my thinking behind. In fact, really a lot of colors would go with all 3, but I decided magenta is the one. So I stirred this for 30 seconds. That is all you get with the polyurethane. If you missed my first video using this stuff, go check it out. I will try and link it here, or it's literally like 2 videos back on my channel. But it's fast. It's a fast work time and fast cure. Now, I did say in that first video that if you add alcohol ink into your polyurethane, it takes a lot longer to cure. And actually, this took 15 minutes. It is a 10-minute demold polyurethane, but I think because I added quite a lot of that alcohol ink, this was 15 minutes. Very sped up for you guys, but yes, 15 minutes later, it is now thoroughly cured to the point where I can start to add in some of my little yummies. But before I do that, I do need to give them all a nice coat of clear UV. The reason I'm doing this is because I really want to add in some of those temporary tattoos and some foils just to have a play, have a little bit of fun, make these a little bit more pretty, because as they are on their own, they're not much. They're really not much. They come to life when you add a temporary tattoo. I've said this in many videos. If you end up with anything that you just don't love, it's not filling your heart with happy, guys, slap a temporary tattoo on it. I promise it will elevate it, bring it up a level, and make it totally saleable. If you've got anything laying around that you just feel a bit meh about, temporary tattoos, guys, all the time. Here are my selection of kind of like smaller miniature temporary tattoos. It's hard. When you've got so much choice, it's so hard. I went through the pack 3 times until I found some tattoos that were really calling to me. And here are those foils that I got from Temu. I've shown these in a very recent video, and it was time to cut them out. Now, some of them are quite easy to cut out in a circle. Make sure you remove that protective plastic sleeve. Otherwise, your tattoo won't work. These are temporary tattoos for the skin. So again, easily available on Amazon and so many out there, honestly. With this one, I decided to just, instead of just cutting out this little circle here, which is really for the loop, so you can see all of those molds have that, silicone loop, I was just thinking it would leave a really random black line on the temporary tattoo. So I just went in and I just cut out that black line so that when we do actually get our temporary tattoo in there, it's not going to have any weird random lines stopping in the middle of the sky. Once I'd done that, I knew it would fit nice and lovely and snugly in there. So just turn it over, press it down onto your resin, and you know, we'll get to that in a minute, what we do next. With this one, you'll notice I did have some polyurethane resin left over, so I just poured it into some spare extra molds there. You can see on the right there's a heart. With the circle, I demolded the circle to enable me to cut around it for this girl's face. It really is just a helpful tip as well. If you're doing anything like this, make a little template first and then you can use it to cut around for your temporary tattoos. Of course, I do end up having to trim this ever so slightly to actually physically fit in there because, of course, I've cut it to the exact shape. You just want it just trimmed so it comes within your mold shape. That is it for the temporary tattoos. I've cut them down to size. I'm just pushing them down with my finger. They are quite sticky at this point, so before we add water to those, I'm just gonna cut out my foil. Now with the foil, it's really quite easy. You can kind of hold it up against your mold and see if there's a natural area that you can cut to make it the perfect circle for your mold. Luckily with that one there was, and I just cut it down to size. Now it is time for the water. We're going to add water to the backs of our temporary tattoos, much like you would on your skin, and just make sure that they are saturated enough, leaving them for around about a minute before you peel back that paper. And I always would recommend sliding the paper off instead of just pulling it directly up, because there always might be a bit that you've missed and that will just rip your tattoo straight up with it. So I do recommend sliding it around first to make sure that the paper has completely let go of that temporary tattoo. Now that they are fully dry, I am just going in with another layer of the clear resin. Now, this was quite a process, I'm not going to lie. So there are multiple layers here. There are multiple times where we have to allow things to cure, walk away, use the UV lamp, walk away, use the lamp again. So these are a little bit time consuming, but they're so worth it in my opinion because they're just so pretty. Okay, as for the foil, I just put a little blob of the UV resin down, you saw there, and I'm using my micro brush to squish out from the center of the foil. I'm kind of squishing out that UV resin that's underneath to the edges. This is gonna push out any air that's trapped below the foil, but also get that foil well and truly flattened out. Some of that UV resin does come up and over the edges, and that's absolutely fine because that's just going to help us. We're going to cure that foil in place before we add the very final layer of UV resin. Now, I learned this really, if you saw recently, I used a new gyro cut tool to cut out some washi tape, and honestly, I left so much of a gap that it really required 2 to 3 layers of UV resin. Otherwise, I just would have been there all day trying to cure this really thick, deep layer of UV. So that is why I'm doing this in multiple layers at the top. So 1 layer of UV should be enough to let me then top them completely up. Sorry for the shaky on the camera. I keep hitting it because my phone actually lives directly above where I'm working and I just whack it all the time. Really trying not to get any of this wibbly wobbly footage for you guys, but here we are. Top coat is done. 1 quick blast of my flame straight under the UV lamp for 200 minutes and we are done. I love them. There's definitely some things I would do differently. On this one, I got a weird lump. I don't know what happened there. I really don't. I thought I'd got a nice smooth surface with my UV, but I did get a bit of a bulge just under her chin. We'll live with it. We're okay. We'll move on. This one is, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I absolutely love these foils. I want to work with foils more in the future. I know, 10 years behind everyone else, but it's okay. Because like I said in a previous video, people are starting resin for the first time all the time. So hey, here we are. This one I'm not keen on, guys. This tattoo, to me, it was pretty on the sheet, but it's weak. it's just not as powerful for me. Again, it's pretty, it's oceans, crashing waves, very Japanese in illustration style, but for me it's just a bit weak on this, you know, on this. Whereas the girl, oh my gosh, she is powerful, in your face, main character kind of energy. Loving her. As for the resin and the polyurethane, they stuck together like a dream. Kind of thought they would, but together they create the opaque and the transparent elements, so you can kind of have half and half, or just elements of clear, elements of opaque. Really love this girl's face. Like, oh, there's something about it. It's just giving me queen energy. I really love it. And I love the foil. Let me know which ones are your favorites. I feel like there's also an element of the polyurethane kind of washing out the color in the UV resin. I feel like if these were just colored UV resin on their own, they'd be a bit more vibrant. That's the word I'm looking for. I feel like the colors in the UV resin have kind of been a little bit washed out here. I don't know if that's because the opaque has dominated in some way, but still I think they're so pretty. Worth taking the time. Definitely worth the time, because again, this was multiple layers of UV, waiting for it to cure, adding another layer, etc. Totally worth it. Hope you love these as much as I do, and I will see you in the next video, which will be the glitter and the polyurethane. We're going to see how they work together. Do they work? Who knows? See you then. Bye.